What's happening, y'all? It's Brad. Thanks for listening, sharing, and supporting our show. And I'm so proud to announce that we've got 2 new avenues for you to support. So check the show notes because there's 2 links in there. One is for seekjesus.co. It's a faith-based apparel company, and we got some awesome options to choose from. If you use the code Hattnin, you'll save 15% off your order, and any order $75 or greater, you'll get free shipping as well. The second link is for those of you that are thinking about starting a podcast, or maybe you have one, but you're looking to monetize it, you're on another distributor, whatever the case may be. We've been using Spreaker since day one. And what I love about Spreaker is that there's no secret tiers for you to reach to start making money. You can start earning from your very first episode. So check the links to get started. Thanks so much for the love, and let's start the show.
But Nas,
hey, you know where I'm at with it.
I know.
It's
I know
Kanye for me.
So if you said Kanye died after he made them first 3 albums, then yeah, he probably was the greatest. But I don't know if he got replaced with an alien or something after his mom died. But that shit was
body snatchers happen for real.
So like, it was those first 3, which was probably the greatest first 3 albums of any rapper in rap history. And then he turns around and does this 808s and Heartbreak. I was like, all right, his mom just passed. Yeah. He has to get over it. Cool. Then he came back with Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and Watch the Throne. I was like, okay, Ye is back. And then he did Yeezus. And I haven't listened to a Kanye record since.
Yo, what's happening with Whus Hattnin?
Welcome to What's Happening. I'm Brad.
I'm Fred.
It's the show we talk about what's happening. What's happening with you, bro?
Not much, bro. Just did the big boy dad move by the grill. Look forward to getting back in the season. I'm also got my daughter's first jazz band concert coming up. Kind of excited about that. But other than that, my little sister getting ready to graduate, so it's a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to put down in perspective, got a flight I want to take, I don't know. It sounds just like I'm rambling, but what's up with you, bro?
I don't know if I got as much going on as you, but, just working, taking care of the family as usual. Yesterday we had my niece's birthday party. That was fun. One of the family type events.
Fun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So just that, and that's really it. So for our listeners this week, we have a little bit of a different episode. Not so much different, but we did a collaboration episode. So after the commercial, you guys are going to hear our conversation with Dom and Lawrence from the Ingenious Perspectives podcast. It was the episode that we did was inspired. The episode that you will hear was inspired from Randy, who was our final guest on the Women Making History series. We decided to have a conversation about what we can do as men, and not necessarily us specifically, but men in general, how we can help prevent and ultimately stop sexual harassment and sexual assault amongst women. So I said that's going to come after this ad here. Check it out. And then check out the show notes as well for all of the socials for both shows. And we hope you guys enjoy it. And so we are talking about the, how we as men can help prevent and stop sexual harassment of women. And this is kind of a piggyback on our episode from our Women Making History, from the Whus Hattnin podcast, Women Making History series, where we had a guest talk about her experience with sexual assault. So for those of you that don't know my voice, I'm Brad. I'm the co-host of Whus Hattnin, and my co-host is Fred. What's happening with you, Fred?
Not much. What's good with you, bro?
Man, just chilling. Watch your boy Kevin Durant get swept, but I'm not gonna get you off track right now.
Yeah, we ain't gonna get in there.
And then for the traditional Whus Hattnin listeners, we are working we are collaborating with the co-host of the Ingenious Perspective podcast. We have Lawrence and we have Dominic. How you doing, fellas?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good things.
Good.
Good. So for the listeners that don't know each other, we should take a moment to talk about what our shows are and how we ended up deciding to work together. And Lawrence, I'll let you start off with that.
Yeah, so we're Ingenious Perspectives. We take a good hard look at some of the issues that affect the Black community, and we like to bring a different perspective to those, right? Because your perspective shapes your world. And Dominique, he shot me over you all's podcast. I started giving it a listen. I got the pleasure listening to your Women's History Month series. And one of them that stuck out huge for me was that interview y'all did where you had, and the names, I'm terrible with names here. If you refresh her name.
Randy.
Yeah, Randy came on and she was talking about, her experience, her personal experience. And I heard in her experience, experiences that I've been, told and shared with and stuff like that for other women. And it was I mean, I was listening to this and I was like, am I listening to some journalists right now in this interview? Like it was really good because you are asking, very inviting questions of her while, still being, super respectful of her, her, whatever her boundaries were, and I know a lot of folks that get into that space and they're just like, tell me the next thing, that kind of thing. Y'all are just like, hey, whatever you want to share, next thing. And she was, really forthright and that it just so I'm listening to that, and then I go over and I'm telling Dominique about it. I'm listening to this I got to give out credit where credit is due. I'm listening to Jon Stewart's podcast, right? He has a podcast, he has a show. On his show he has Toni Morrison on, not on, she has a clip from her and she talks about racism, right? She's like she's getting interviewed by a white reporter or something. He's talking about, racism to her. And she's like, well, I don't have a problem with racism. It seems like white people have a problem with racism and they need to figure that out. It's basically what she was saying.
Right.
So, Jon Stewart basically takes that lead and has a panel of white folks on to talk about how they can stop racism, right? Because it's not going to be us that stops it because we're not the racist ones. So yeah, I thought about that. So I got those two things. I'm like, man, if we can, it's not going to be women that stop sexism because they're not the sexists. It's not going to be women that stop, sexual assault because they're not the assaulters. In general, you're talking about broad themes and stuff. So thinking about that, and I brought that to you guys, and and you all hit me with a lot of enthusiasm. So here we are.
Perfect. Appreciate the compliments and the love there. Dom, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the Whus Hattnin listeners as well.
He covered so much of it. A lot. So I'll cover how we met. So I met Lawrence while we were attending NC State. And we were going through a program there, and the program was such that we were amongst the very, very few, like a super minority there in the program. So we saw each other, we immediately clicked. Then add to that, like we're just amongst a few Black people in the program. We had similar thought process, views on life, similar experiences. And so we started talking, and you've had that experience. You're over a buddy's house and, it breaks down to that point of night. You have a good conversation and you say, all right, I'm gonna head out. And then you get up off the couch and you talk for another hour. All right, I'm gonna head out. And you get to the door, you talk for another hour. All right, I'm gonna head out.
Yeah.
You open the door, you talk, right? And so that kept happening so much that pandemic hits, everybody's chilling, and 17 million people were starting podcasts. And we're like, we can start a podcast too. We talk, we have great conversations, and let's share them. And like you said, we both felt like perspective was important, and the expansion of paradigm is important because you don't have to change your viewpoint on the world. But if you understand more people's viewpoints, it can help you kind of navigate a little bit better and assess how you treat people and how you deal with people. So we research, we try to bring some thoughts that maybe people haven't heard, not always our opinions, but just opinions that need to get put out there. And that's what we do.
That's dope.
That is dope. And it's funny, you said, you guys talked about having good conversations and determined that it's time for people to hear it. So Fred and I, so first off, for the Ingenious Perspective listeners, my name is Brad. I'm the co-host of Whus Hattnin. I may have already said that, so
it's all good.
It's all good.
All good.
We get super repetitive.
It's all good. But Fred and I, we met working together. Well, actually, we met just kind of casually. I was a patron in the business he was working at, and then a few months later, he ended up hiring me. We ended up working together for a short time period before I got a little promotion, and we became peers. And we just been having dope conversations about everything for 10 years. So we decided, hey, it's time to go ahead and record this. So
Wow.
kind of the same thing y'all had going on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But What's Happening is, I call it a freestyle variety show.
Okay.
We talk about different things every episode. So you guys kind of highlighted our Women Making History series. As of this recording, our last series, we interviewed a friend that's got an autistic child, and we talked about what it's like to raise children with autism. I think you guys are going to throw in a little piece at the beginning, but we had a 2-part episode where we debated the greatest rapper of all time. We just talked about
questionable conclusions, but yes.
Check out the Whus Hattnin archives for yourself to see what's going on there. But we have just good conversations with everything. We interview unique individuals. We debate. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but it's all real, it's all authentic, and that's just what we do. And I know I've said a lot, but Fred, I'll give you an opportunity to jump in there.
I mean, it's the same thing. You pretty much said it all. How we met. I mean, I really don't have no twist to it. We can just go ahead and dive in. Ain't much for me to add.
All right.
Let's dive into it. So, like we said, we're still in that idea from Jon Stewart's podcast, and we're talking about what as men can we do? How can we behave differently? And we're speaking for men in general. I don't think we're speaking for anyone in particular on this panel, but we're speaking for men in general. How can we operate? How can we function in society differently? To better protect women and to provide an environment that's safer for them.
Okay. I will say one of the first things that I come across is that a lot of men, specifically in our age and our generation, have to accept the errors of what we learned as children was societally acceptable and socially acceptable, right? So we have to learn to push away from that and realize, all right, we were raised in something, we were taught something that wasn't acceptable. Those behaviors continued. We were wrong for thinking those behaviors were acceptable. At the point when you realize you were wrong, you don't double down on that because you don't want to be wrong. You don't double down on that because you don't want to be amongst a group of people who were part of the problem. You see your errors and you correct them and you be better in the future. So I think one of the first things we have to do is accept the mistakes that society had because of his viewpoint, and then move forward from those, accepting that we can be better and trying to be better. I think that'll be a major help if we can just, right, look, we fucked up, society fucked up, like pull away. Don't keep going in that direction. That's one of the first steps that I had to take to look back on some of the actions I had as a kid. Like when you're walking around and the way you talk to women when you were in middle school and high school, right? The way you approach women like early on in life, the way music taught us, right, to behave and act, and it wasn't acceptable. So we move forward there first.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a big, I think I've said it before on our show is when you know better, you do better.
Right.
Right. And, there's some things that we may have learned maybe explicitly or implicitly through the way, life operates. And you just look back, you're just like, that wasn't great. The way I approached this situation, the way, I addressed this young lady. Yeah, I could think of some things that I did in middle school that were just not like, that were encouraged, but not appropriate at all. Right. And, I'm thinking about this one, whatever. We believe in keeping it a buck on our show. So I'm gonna keep it a buck everywhere I go. I can remember there was this girl I had a crush on, and I just went up in the middle of like gym class, slapped her on the ass. I'm 13. And like we talk about like learned behavior. That was nothing that my father had ever done. I never saw my stepfather do that to my mom or anything like that. It's just being around, you know, in the areas that we kind of grow up in, and maybe some other kids are learning, bad behaviors from where they grow up at, and you just want to, hey, I like her, I like what she got, and this was what I went and did, and just like I think back to that now, and I'm just like, I was 13 years old, slapping a girl on the ass. That was not, nah, that's not what you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but, and I also think about it like, she didn't like tell on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, she just was like, hey, don't be doing that. And then like, I know it wasn't the last time I did it either. Like, I can think of at least one more time that I did it. You know what I'm saying? And Mama, if you listen to this, I'm grown now. You can't do nothing to me. But I mean, like, I'm just thinking like that she absolutely should have like turned around, slapped me in the face. Right? Should have got suspended. Should have went home. I have a 13-year-old daughter now. Somebody slap her on the ass, it's not gonna be a good time. I'm not gonna it's not gonna be a good time. Before I incriminate myself, let me just say that it's not gonna be a good time.
Yeah, man. That what you talking about with the, even if you can't point to mom or dad or you said stepdad or whatnot, like the constellation of music and videos and your peers, because like that's the dudes that I learned the bad habits I have definitely from. Not to say that it was not not my responsibility and all, but like those are the people that had the most effect. So when it comes to trying to fix this thing, I think peer accountability is going to be the biggest, the biggest push, that you're going to see. Like if looking back on my days, if somebody had said, hey Lawrence, why you got, why you talking to this girl, that kind of thing, that would have been a huge, pivot point for me, especially if it was somebody I kind of looked up to or something like that. So like I think about all the interactions that you talk to a woman and she can tell you about, that 13-year-old girl you talked about, when she grows up one day, right? And she's telling somebody about that story, right? So like that's one of those interactions that somebody could step in maybe and be and make that a good memory or not, that kind of thing.
I definitely agree. And Dom made a big point earlier when he said that the things that influence us, and Lawrence, you touched on another point, but between peers and movies and what we listen to, what we fill our minds with on a daily basis, what we consumed as children, I think is what shaped us into being the kind of gentleman we are. Like Bradley, your story, as soon as you say it, just remind me of the wood, But to touch on the peer pressure that Lawrence was talking about, they bet him $1 to do it, knowing it was wrong. You know what I mean? Versus being the big homie and saying, nah, I know you like her. How about, we take this in a different manner to get her attention than betting you $1 to do something that I know, gonna have you on the opposite side. Or doing something just in general that's not right, or in a manner that any of us would want for our 13-year-old daughter, 14-year-old daughter, for me, and 13, to be treated, So, you look at that and you try to help shape that differently by being the big homie or the big cousin or big brother that tells yours that's, hey, nah, that ain't cool. Don't follow the little homies, you know what I'm saying? Like it don't amount to anything. It don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? Don't matter how they look at you, what they say, one thing I told, some of my little homies that I was able to mentor and still do and see, hey, enjoy the time that you in. Yeah, you're gonna do foolish stuff, but you know what I'm saying? let it be something meaningful more than something that could be criminal.
Right.
You know, and when I say that, you know, enjoy the time you're in, because as you grow up, y'all gonna separate. The ones that you amongst right now ain't gonna be the same ones that you kicking it with later. That you impressing now ain't gonna be the same ones, you know what I'm saying, that you don't even understand how y'all was cool.
Right.
You know, so why sit here and impress them? That's putting yourself out there, you know what I'm saying, in a different light or different situation, when you can be taking care of yourself. You know what I'm saying, in a better manner. Or being the one that's the leader to say, nah, that ain't cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not engage in that. You know what I'm saying? Because to them it's like, yeah, I can press them, but if the big homie find out, he gonna be upset with me. You know what I mean? And that's the mentality we should have to our younger peers or children or what have you, is, you know, giving them something to look up to, but at the same time, not wanting to disappoint.
Yeah.
Something about accountability.
Yeah, that's major. And I think that plays into another thing. Like, how many of y'all, I know for sure, I can say for me, how many of y'all had discussions as you got older with women, female friends, women you're dating, whatever, where you learn about some of the things that you're going through that were probably happening around you while you were out and about, that you didn't even notice, that you were completely oblivious to. And that, like, I've had those conversations where I'm like, I knew there were problems, right? And I knew it was an issue, but I didn't know to the extent, right, that it existed. I was completely ignorant because I wasn't thinking about anybody else. I wasn't being held accountable by anybody else to think about anybody else. I was thinking about myself. I was like, all right, I'm not doing this. My friend's not doing this. Like, so it's probably not that bad. Like, the guys I know are not participating in these behaviors. I'm not participating in these behaviors. So it's probably fine, but I'm probably out about in a bar, in a club somewhere where something's happening and I just wasn't even looking for it. I wasn't even paying attention. I wasn't trying to make sure, right? And that has a certain amount of accountability. Like, it's your job, right? We're supposed to police ourselves and each other. Like, it's not, as like Lawrence brought up, it's not the responsibility of women to end sexual harassment by men. It's our responsibility. So we have to take more responsibility on for that. And if that means putting a little bit of extra weight on your shoulders because the guys around you or the guys you see are not doing what they're supposed to do, then carry the extra weight, because somehow or another it's got to be stopped.
Yeah, true. I mean, I know for me back in the day, you know, I used to have the party spot. So, you know, every weekend or so, you know, everybody come over to the house and you know, get some drinks and stuff like that. I remember always having to think about the drunk women, right? Always having to think, because they got, you know, fellas that are over, you know, this is, you know, I'm junior in the Navy at the time. I don't know these guys like that. You know, I don't know these guys, you know, I only met them maybe a month ago or something like that, right? So we're over there and stuff, and oh, okay, you know, oh, she's drinking way too much. She just got out of boot camp. She don't know what her limits are anymore because she hadn't drank for a long time. Okay, so let me make sure she get into the room by herself and lock the door, make sure nobody trying to sneak her in and do nothing wild. You know, that kind of stuff is like the little proactive things that, you know, we all can do individually. I'm sure y'all got stories like that where, you know, you just kind of see something, you're like, that don't make sense. Let me step in. But then you're not thinking, it's like you said, you're not thinking about it all the time. Maybe there's stuff that happens that you don't see.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, and I mean, I'm pretty sure to piggyback off the stories like you say that we all should probably have. But growing up, how many times have you been somebody's fake boyfriend, fake brother, fake cousin? You know what I mean? Like, you don't even think about it until now. You like, damn, I wonder what I really helped prevent. You know what I'm saying? Because I really didn't see the signs. I just played the role.
Yep. I know exactly.
You know what I
what
mean? Like, it come natural. Just, you know what I'm saying? Like, in your mind as a youngster, it's like, oh, she don't really want to get on with dude. Like, oh yeah, what's up, hey, let's go. You know what I mean? And she get to her car, you get to yours, and you just play the role real quick just to make sure she was cool. You know what I'm saying? And you think it's just because she ain't want to holler at a dude, but he could have been pressed up against her all night. He might have tried something on the dance floor or something that ain't nobody catch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in retrospect, you really just saved the situation. But there's times, you know what I'm saying, that us ourselves, because we don't understand the situation or ain't thinking of it, we try to throw that person in. Nah, won't you holler at me? Won't you? You know what I'm saying? So on the back end, how many times did we maybe miss an opportunity?
Yeah.
So how can we educate, around that? And is it just education? Is it an ignorance where guys like us like want to do better, or is it really just predatory? Like where do we think the real problem lies?
I think it's a go ahead.
No, that's you, man.
I think it's a blend of both. Going back to what Fred was saying earlier about being able to the thought just poof. I'm so sorry. Fred, you had a thought that I was thinking of earlier. I think it's a little bit of a blend of both. I think there's some guys that can be obviously there's some guys that are predatory, right? We have legal evidence of that, right?
Absolutely.
I think sometimes there's situations where you can be a little weird and you don't necessarily realize. I shared a story on a previous episode. I forget what episode it was, but there was a young lady that I worked with. This is years and years and years ago before I met my wife. So I don't want her coming at me wondering, when did this happen? But I was just flirting, saying stuff to her, and I was offending her, right? I didn't know. She reported me to one of the supervisors, not like filing an official complaint, was like, hey, he's saying some stuff. It's not cool. It got back to me. I apologized to her, stopped it immediately, right? Because once it came to me, it was like, oh, this is kind of crazy. I see how you felt this way from that perspective, and I didn't get it, right? And then so Fred, earlier you were talking about this is what Big Brother was saying. This is what my big cousin's telling me to do, what the big homie's telling me to do. Earlier, in this episode, I talked about how I never saw my father or my stepfather doing like smacking my mama on the butt. Like I never saw that, right? But I can also say that neither one of those men ever said, hey, this is how we address women. This is how we talk to women. This is how it's done, right? So earlier I was thinking, we were talking about the bad influences of music and things of that nature. The good influence is gonna, I would think, is gonna counteract that bad influence, right? So if we as men, first off, obviously in our own homes, say, hey, this is how we conduct, this is how we behave, this is how we operate, and then being involved in our communities, if that's your church, if that's your volunteer effort, if that's the kids that live on your street, if that's other kids in your family. I got a nephew that's 17 years old, and he and I, when I get some time with him just one-on-one, I'm just like, hey, we just talking as men, what's going on? And the things that we talk about in those conversations stay between me and him, because I want to make sure that I can be that source that where he can come to and he can trust, because he's 17. he's about to go through some things
and figure it out.
I think that early step in, being that big homie, that big brother, that big cousin, big uncle, whatever you got to be. I think being that for young men as they come up, show them the way. That's a huge part of it, for one. And then the predatory piece is when we see it, call it out. Hey, homie, what you doing right now? Ain't a good look for you.
Yeah, man, that calling it out, that accountability piece. So I'm active duty Navy, and I remember one of the coolest things about the journey the Navy's been doing about sexual assault and prevention and all that kind of stuff. There was a time when I first got in, our sexual assault training was something basically like, hey, don't touch your shipmates, period. Don't touch each other, stop it, that kind of thing. It has progressed to now it's peer accountability, that kind of thing. And it's like now it's when you see something, say something, that kind of thing. Report people, call them out, because that's the most effective way. You get out in front of it. When you're in that bar, or when your boy's telling you, oh man, she won't answer the phone. You just see him keep calling the same girl over and over again. It's like, man, hey, stop, man. What are you doing? Or hey, where you at? Oh, I'm out front of her apartment. You with her? Oh, you stalking her? Go home, dude. Like, that kind of stuff. It's like, and like it's crazy because what you said, when you talked about the predators, and then there's the the kind of the ignorant folks who just kind of they do weird stuff, or they're doing something just kind of how you started, and they don't know they're on the wrong side of stuff. Like, I think most people end up falling in that category. Even your your guest you had on, I was really wowed by this. She was convinced that the dude was just stupid. It wasn't that he was, woke up one morning and said, hey, I'm gonna go attack somebody, I'm gonna go do this. He just was stupid and didn't understand that you gotta like get permission. You gotta get consent before you try to do something to somebody. And I think that was like one of the I think for most people, when they mess up and they leaving these marks, I think they don't know no better. They don't understand that women operate on a whole different level than us. And so, like you talked about with the ass slap. Hey, I'm gonna run up and slap you on the ass. Oh, I expect if you don't like it, you're gonna slap me in the face. Well, like a lot of women can internalize some of that stuff and be like, oh, well, ooh, am I supposed to, slap him in the face? Is it okay for me to respond in this way, aggressively? And then the fact that we, in general, dudes are bigger than women. I think, man, I was when I first started hearing these stories, and I started doing some research a little bit from women. That was one of the biggest things that popped out to me, man. This lady opens an article, and I wish I could go back to it and reference it. She opens up an article. Her first sentence is, "Men are bigger than women." She was like, in every interaction with a man, a woman has to think about, this dude grab hold of me, what I'm gonna do. And I was just like, whoa, that's like, I don't even think about that. Like that's something that women have to carry around with them that we're completely oblivious of. Like I interact with some guys that are bigger than me, but like when it comes down to it, I think that I cannot die in a fight with a lot of people. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna say I can whoop everybody, but I'm just saying,
I'm gonna make it to the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's a lot of women don't, they don't have that perception.
I think what you said about consent is important, and I think it has to be discussed in relationships as well. From what I found talking to a lot of women, the biggest issues they have discussing consent isn't the random guy they went on a date with. It's that significant other that thinks that consent is implied just because there's a relationship. And so I think that's an important thing that you need to establish, even outside of, hey, we need to protect these women at the bars, we need to protect these women here, like we need to protect the women you're with. You need to make sure that, right, just because I'm feeling Randy right now, and this is something I want to do, and she's like for it, is she for it because she's like, all right, I need to do this because I have to do this because it's been internalized in me from relationships, like what you talked about. Like, she got smacked on the ass and she thought it was okay, and she didn't respond. And your thought in your head was, if she doesn't want this, she's gonna say she doesn't want this. Sometimes you can even think that with the person you're in a relationship with, if she's not for this, she'll let me know. We've been together how long? She can talk to me. She knows me. Like, it's good. But sometimes it's not that way. And so consent is something that's important in relationships as well. We have to make sure that's there on that level. And I think that's one of the things that gets missed. It just gets overlooked. We're talking about, all right, well, we're gonna stop
That's a bar.
Joe Schmo from running up in my house and doing this. We're going to stop this guy from Mickey and this girl's drink and taking her home. Well, let's talk about what we're doing. Like, let's talk about making sure that our significant others are good, that they're ready, that everything we're doing is okay, that it's something they actually desire, not just something they feel obligated to do.
Yeah, mad true.
That's
Mad
a
true.
that's a damn bar. I don't know how to add on to that.
Yeah. Yo, one of my favorite talking about like consent, talking to people about consent is one of my favorite like metaphors for it is like, do you want coffee or do you want tea? I think tea is the one I heard
You
the
brought
most of.
what episode? I have to figure out because you brought this up on one of the episodes. It was really good, but yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So it's like, you know, if you walk into a room and you're like, hey, do you want some tea? You know, and you go, this person goes, no, I don't want a tea. You'd be an asshole to try to give them some tea, right? Because they don't want it. They said no. Well, if you walk into a room and you say, hey, you want some tea, and they kind of just look at you a little bit, would you give them some tea? Nah, you won't. You be like, no, they didn't say yes. They probably don't want no tea. You know, so but if you're an employer and that's your employee, you know, and you're like, hey, you want some tea? You know, there's a little bit of pressure for them to accept the tea from you, right? So it's not something you do normally. You don't just force people to take things from you just because of your position. You can look at that dynamic as you know, shifting consent away from like a sexual relationship and turn it back into like something trivial, like offering somebody a beverage. And it explains, like, to me, it sheds a whole lot of light on the nuance of something so complex as consent. Because, you know, you think about, like you said, the relationship, like me and my wife, I'm excuse me, young lady, would you like to partake? You know, that's you know, that's not what that is, you know, but that does look, you know, but you know, I still get consent. You know, it looks a little bit different. You know, now it's you know, we're decades in and all that, but like it's still consent.
Nah, I agree 100%. You know, you no matter who it is, how long you've been with them, you still have to get consent. It's no different when you decide to go somewhere. You say, "Hey, you want to go with me?" Or "Will you go with me?" You don't say, "Hey, get your ass in this car and let's go."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Get in my car.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it don't work like that. You know what I mean? So in the same manner, you're gonna ask, like you said, Lawrence, it may be in a different way depending on what stage of life you're in, you know, with this person, but you're still gonna ask for consent, you know. But I think the other thing too is we have to be okay with things changing. Because you know, there's a lot of times I get places that I'm excited to go and be, and then I get there and be like, I could have stayed at home for this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So it is no different than when, you know what I'm saying, you invite someone or someone invites you thinking that, hey, it's gonna go there, and things changed along the way.
And
Yep.
that's at any point. I
Yeah.
fully agree with
And either party could have said, I could have stayed home for this shit. It ain't, you know what I'm saying? But you have to understand that, you know, just because consent is given at 1 don't mean it's given at 9.
Yes. Hey, it looks like it's like you said, that the get in the car example or the tea example. You take 2 sips, you're like, it ain't for me.
Right.
Put it down. I can't force you to drink the rest of it.
Even more so, say, hey, I would really like some tea when you get home. Like, I hope you brew me up some tea. You get home and you brew up the tea, and then like, you know what? I got a taste for Sprite right now. And it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
So you got more tea for yourself.
Hey, the good thing about tea, from my understanding, you can save it for a later day. So
You can save
it. But you know, and the thing, you know, I do, because Dom, I think you asked the question. I don't think we really touched the subject, but you asked. I want to say to an extent, how do we know, you know, what exactly to look for or to say, you know, saying Lawrence gave us some great points. But for someone who hasn't took, you know what I'm saying, a more extensive Navy course, you know what I'm saying, how do you always recognize the signs? Because until Lawrence said that, I couldn't really give you one sign because not every woman is the same. You know, some want you to pursue a little more aggressively than others. So, and that's another thing we gotta understand when we tread waters. I think we more so got to know the type of women we attract, how they respond, you know, because every woman is not the same. If you attract usually a certain type and you come a little aggressive and they're like, whoa, people respond to that, that should tell you, okay, yeah, no, I misjudged this one. Let me move this way. You know what I'm saying? That's not my usual response I get. You know what I mean? But because, you know, I think back on some of the girls that I pursued, and some of them was like, you just want aggressive enough, you know, and then some of them's like, you know, oh, buddy, you jumped up there a little too aggressive, didn't you? You know what I'm saying? Out the gate. You know what I mean? It's a balancing act, though. It really is, because I think that's the hardest part for a man is, you know, especially when growing up in my era, as we said in the beginning, there's some things we learned early that probably was bad thing to learn. And I wouldn't say there's a such thing as playing hard to get, because that leaves too much gray area.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
On that, man. There's facts on that.
We grew up with that kind of mentality. Not saying every girl or every situation, but we feel like a little, you know what I'm saying, cat paw back or something, a little scratch or nick back. Okay, you know, she ain't like that approach. Let me try it a different way. When it may just be like, no, she just don't like you. Just don't try.
Yeah, she said no. She's just trying to be polite. She's just trying to be polite. She said no, though.
And that's the other thing. Like, having these discussions, you find out so many times, and you wonder back when I got that very polite, you know, no, I'm not really interested, and you know, I appreciate your interest though, and you know, you are very attractive, but I just don't think, like, did they really just want to say get the fuck out my face? And they just looked at me and they was like, yo, he a little big, and I think I'm gonna just like that's a real issue. Like, how many times have we gotten that very, very graceful, sugar-coated Southern bless your heart, when really what they wanted to say was take your shit somewhere else?
Facts, without that data point, man. You see that? Like, without that data point, it's like, whoa, it changed the whole dynamic, changed the whole perspective.
It absolutely does. And that's why, so for me, like, you know, I probably missed some shots. I probably got a lot of missed opportunities. But if I come across a woman who's like, I really wish he would have pursued a little harder, like, you probably not gonna end up dating me. Like, just like, there's some risks I'm just not interested in taking. So like, she's like, man, you know, if he had just asked me one more time, I probably would have said yes. Well, it's not. Like, just like women have different types, I got different types. And the one, if you want to be chased and pursued, like, I'm just not your guy. Sorry. Not the one for you.
And that's the thing. Go ahead, bro.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's the thing we gotta understand too. We got types.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of times we done told one, oh no, thank you. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it though, but I'm in a situation, or I'm just not looking, just got out. We done said something to the fact of, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, you know, people think, oh, man, just gonna take anything, and they'll go, nah, it's not always the case. You know what I'm saying? So at the same time, if we can turn down something, we got to be able to be turned down.
I think it's, and I also think it's different because women live in fear. Like, women, so, and again, when you're able to have certain conversations later in life that you couldn't have when you were 22, right? So I get to have conversations sometimes with women talk about, all right, so I turned this guy down and he threw a drink in my face. I turned this guy down and he cursed me out. Like, there's actual fear that exists for repercussions of what is going to happen to them if they tell some guy who's twice their size, right? If they tell some guy who's even just a little bit bigger than them, or like who has this aura to them, or he has this look in his eye, like anything, and they have to worry about what's going to happen next. Whereas as a guy, I don't care how much you pursue. I don't care. Like, if I feel like I want to tell you no, I'm not worried about what you're going to do to me next. I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, and they don't have that same freedom. Like in present society, they don't have that same freedom. They have to worry. Think about the guy. It was what, late last year, early this year. Maintenance man got rejected by a woman. He was going up in her house and he killed her. Like, that's what happened to a woman who rejected somebody. She was killed by the man she rejected. How often do you hear about that happening from the man's perspective? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me.
And it's crazy you say that. I don't know all the full details, so I really don't want to, speak a lot on it. But my little cousin, was just in an actual situation like that, with the mother of his child. Not him doing anything, but him and the mother of his child is, split up. She was seeing someone else. And I guess they were getting ready to split up, and he didn't agree with it. And so she's no longer here.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? He's younger
Damn.
than me. So to just give you perspective, we're talking 20s.
Wow.
And it's crazy because, you don't really look at that stuff until you sit down and have these conversations. You don't really think about them type of things, because it's kind of funny, but not funny in a situation where he says, women think about what may happen to them. The way I met my lady, I feel, I don't think they thought I was aggressive or anything, but I think it was, the way I shot the shot, and it was two of them, her and her friend. They was like, oh, nah, he just think he a player, you know what I mean? But they still took my number in the act of, oh, yeah, we're going to call you, we'll kick it, da-da-da-da. And I never heard from him again. It just so happened, that my cousin wanted me to play wingman. I arrived back to the same two people 3 months later. You know what I'm saying? So
I never heard the story, bro.
So table turned, but it was just, you know what I'm saying? And the situation was just wild. Like when I first met them, like they was coming out my job. It was a dead day at work, like literally only car in the parking lot in the middle of summer. Everybody, we in Sandusky, they had Cedar Point or they had the splash pad. They somewhere with some water or something at, ain't nobody shopping. So they was just getting them like a bathing suit or whatever. And her sister changed in the parking lot. And she was like, ain't nobody out here watching you. And I'm in the cut smoking a cigarette. Like, hey, just, okay, I guess ain't nobody watching. I'm here though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, so after the sister changed her tie, she was like, she said, wasn't nobody in the parking lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to see me. So they pull up, you know what I'm saying? She was like, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nothing, chilling, you know what I'm saying? They was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? What you into or whatnot? And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Not much. You know what I'm saying? She was like, you got a lady? I'm like, no, I'm single. So they was like, oh, okay. So we is too. So who you want? So he put me on the spot. I'm like, hey, look. I got brothers, you know what I'm saying? We could come kick it, you know what I'm saying? And whoever match for whoever, you know what I'm saying? I just wasn't finna say just who I want. Like, you know what I mean? That was crazy. So
I'm about to say, bro, this is not going well.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, just take my number, you know what I'm saying? We'll kick it, play cards or whatever one night, you know what I mean? I'm talking about the same brother that brought me, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I bring my brother with, you know what I'm saying, kick it, however it go. So they took my number, called my brother, like, hey, I might, you know what I'm saying, have something for us to do tonight. I need to play the wing, man, you know what I mean? Like, they both pretty though, so it is what it is. Man, ain't nobody called, whatever, so it was what it was. Then I come back 3 months later, I'm with him. I'm like, I know y'all. Like, you don't know me. Da, da, da. Nah, y'all familiar. I know you. I was like, I know you from my job. She's like, nah, we don't go on Radio Shack. I was like, you never said I worked inside no Radio Shack. I just said I work for them. So once I broke it down and told them the whole story, they just like, oh, we thought we'd never see you again, and boom, boom. And it was just like, boom. But from that night, me and my lady talked, and you know what I'm saying, we talked ever since. We just hit it off. But it was crazy. I feel like it was kind of one of them situations where you were saying, like, they probably was like, shit, I don't know, you know what I mean? He might seen us, won't, feel like he can come at us or follow us or know us. So they felt like they approached me, talked to me, at the situation, get my number, and then move on.
Yeah, maybe like diffuse it.
Yep. Yeah, you know what I mean? So nothing could arise from it because maybe it would felt like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I already got something cooking. I ain't got to approach the situation.
Right.
So,
wow.
It's crazy though, but it's a lot of stuff like that you just really don't think about, you don't look at, you don't know the signs, you know what I'm saying? You could be too aggressive for some, you know what I'm saying? Just because you may, be not aggressive enough for others don't make it right for all,
Yeah, and then add a little bit to it. So there's the physical side that we talking about a lot, but there's also like the social costs and everything. So like, lady gets with a dude, that dude gets kudos off rip. Hey, you walk into a room and everybody knows that, hey, Dominique's body count is, and I ain't gonna say what your body count is, man. You ain't gonna
It's two. Thank you.
Okay. We'll say that. But yeah, we'll say, we'll say that's that. Let's just say hypothetically, it's a larger number.
It might be 3.
Yeah. But like, you get kudos for that. And for them, that's not the case. For in general, the average woman doesn't get the kudos. If their numbers are large, people are looking at them like, well, something's wrong with you. Are you less than, and all that kind of stuff. So like when it comes time to do that balance between, my friend so and so, who's my buddy, who's my pal, starts pushing up on you, you got to think about, well, I might like him, I might not. Is this transactional? Is he trying to what's the whole friendship all about? They're trying to get to this point. All this other stuff that, dudes, I couldn't even imagine thinking about that kind of stuff. If I was like a single guy with the friend, the friend zone girl and all that, and she wanted to come at me, I wouldn't even consider, I wouldn't want to ruin our friendship, and that don't even come to brain. But
we don't talk about, we haven't today talked about predatory male friendships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's also harassment. That's also violating. When you are only friends with this girl, waiting for your turn in line, waiting for her to be single, waiting for your shot, like that's not a friend. That's predatory. That's wrong. That's still wrong. Like if you're her friend, if something comes up, right? Okay, cool, whatever. That you handle that. But if that's your whole purpose, I want to get at this girl, and I know something's gonna go wrong in this relationship. So I'm just you waiting like double dutch. Like that's not, to me, it's predatory and unhealthy.
It's definitely predatory. Definitely unhealthy.
Let me play the devil's advocate for a second.
Because I need that.
What about that Steve Urkel type situation where, if y'all remember watching Family Matters, and I just rewatched the whole series back in 2021, so it's a little bit top of mind. But Steve's whole thing is that I'd rather have Laura in my life as a friend than to not have her at all.
Okay.
But he openly was like, every episode, I'm in love with you. Will you marry me? Let's run away together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, like it was done in a sitcom type setting.
It's okay to look at a show that we loved as kids, and this is what I talked about in the beginning. It's okay to look at that show and say, hey, this was funny in the 90s. That's not okay. If
Nah,
my
it's not.
daughter had a guy that was telling her every single day, I want you, I want you, I want you, and she's telling him every single day, I don't. At a certain point, I'm like, hey, look, bro, you're gonna need to stop coming around here. You're not
Yes.
taking the hints, you're not understanding what she's saying to you. Was the show funny? Yes. Did we love the show? Yes. Jaleel White, a great actor? Yes. But now, when we look back on that, I think it is okay to look at that and realize that wasn't good. That's not what I don't think you would want that for your 13-year-old daughter.
Well,
Let
so
me.
let me ask though before, and forgive me, Fred.
No, you
Is it
good, bro?
if he's being outward and upfront about it, and he's not just like plotting and waiting for that opportunity to get her drunk, and then maybe something might shake out. If he's just plotting and waiting for her, or I'm sorry, if he's not plotting and waiting for her, if he's like upfront about who he is and saying, I am in love with you, but I'm willing to just be your friend if that's what makes you happy. Is that actually predatory? Obviously, from a sitcom setting, that gets drawn out. But in a real life setting, like, hey, I've got feelings for you. You know that I've got feelings for you. You're telling me no, and I'm gonna be cool.
I mean, if you
be cool, yeah,
cool, right? If you're not constantly waiting. So to me, what I'm talking about is that guy who's the friend who, right, she has a situation, something goes wrong, she's out of relationship, and the first thing he says, hey, let me come take care of you. Like, I got you. I'm sorry, he shouldn't have treated you like that. I got you, girl. Like, we good. I got you. Versus the guy who's legitimately, okay, what's wrong? Let's talk about it. What happened? Let me figure this out. Is it salvageable? Do you need to let this guy, like the actual friend who just happens to be of the opposite sex versus the guy who's just looking to get laid? I think those are two different situations.
Yeah.
And I think we're actually talking about an array of different dudes because we have one, the psychopath who's like lingering over and waiting for every single chance to get with her. Then you have two who, the guy who's like, look, I genuinely love you as a person, a human being. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want you. I see you, your characteristics, your mannerisms. You know what I'm saying? I kind of know you and your family for what.
Something happened with bro's audio there.
No,
did he cut out for everybody else too?
It kind of
he was on a flow too.
He was
man.
on a good one.
On his way. He was on his way.
I know what he was talking about too.
But yes,
I mean, he's right.
I think I know, and I agree. Like, it's definitely two different types, but it's
him
two.
Let's break up, whatever. He's like, hey, look, I've told you before,
He's gonna pick back up in a second.
You know what I really think it is? I think it's like catching up to us.
With
everything he said.
He's been third person who's the genuine friend. It's like, okay,
gotcha.
Is this salvageable?
So we're getting the Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You went out there for a little bit.
Oh, my bad. So where I stop at? I don't even know.
It was going in and out, but I think what we were getting was that you're talking about different people, like the predator friend and the actual friend who just cares are not the same. And I would
who's in love too. You know what I'm saying? Right. You got all three.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I just think it's too socially acceptable for the predator friend. Like that's not checked or chastised when that type of friend exists and a guy talks about something like that, about, oh, I'm just waiting, or oh, I'm gonna get my shot, or anything like that. Like, it's not checked and chastised enough.
Yeah, that's some sneak stuff. As the dude who has never been in that position, I've actually been in the one that's like, I'm guarding the house, as opposed, I don't like that. You somebody, the co-worker or something, and you see that little glint in the eye, and you just know it's gonna be one of you.
And I think a piece of that goes back to what we talked about with the accountability. There's a difference. If I'm going back to my Steve Urkel, comparison, he professed true love and true care for Lauren as a person. So he would have never, I guess, reasonably speaking, you could reasonably say that he would have never harmed Laura in any capacity because he only wanted the best for Laura. Now, if it's some scrubs like, man, if I ever get the chance to get up in them cheeks, like
Stefan.
No, it's not even that. It's not even. It's that Tay Diggs best man energy. That's
exactly.
like,
Yo, come on, man.
That Tay Diggs best man energy. Like how we all friends, and then as soon as I mess up, you're like, hey, so
Tay Diggs, bro, like the actual villain in the whole series.
Tay Diggs is the villain. Why'd you write that book, bro? Like, why did you write that book? And that again, that goes back to what Laura's talked about before. If I write a book about my body count, about what I've been doing and how I'm running the streets, you know what they call it? Casanova, an international bestseller. When she writes the book, it's like, what was Superhead's book? I don't know. She wrote a book, didn't she?
Yeah,
she
there
wrote
was
a book, right?
She did write a book,
yeah,
and it was basically,
and she got chastised for that. Like,
I'm just mad that that's who I thought about as soon as you went on that.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I thought about.
She wrote a book. She wrote a whole book, and then everybody was like, "Yo, you ain't shit." Like these dudes, all like, what are you saying? She ain't shit. Once again, if a woman has a body count, this is offered to her. Like, I don't understand.
It's Kim Kardashian. How we look at her as far as her body count and everything, and then there's Common.
Here's what's wild to me. If you really look at people that you know that Kim has actually dated, it's like 6 people.
Yeah,
I challenge any guys that I know to show me a body count of 6 people or less, besides me, who's is 3. So like anybody, like that's crazy.
Hypothetically,
I'm only one.
I'm holding the company line. Don't play with me here. I'm holding the company line.
My lawyers have advised me is only one.
That's good. That's good advice from good lawyers.
Counsel.
Good advice, good lawyers. But like, and that's the thing. We've got this image in our head, right, that we just automatically have let society put in there. But really, what she did, like Kanye, Ray J, Chris Humphries, Reggie Bush.
The fact that you can rattle them off.
Because I've defended this woman. I've defended her non-slut honor. Like I do. I don't know what she stands for, but just on that one thing, like I mean, she got somebody out of jail. I gotta stand behind her for that one. Just that one. I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't even get around to it. And I know we're having a very serious discussion, but since we veered off a little bit, I just got to take this moment, as we do every episode on Ingenious Perspectives, like to mention great Miss Megan Javon Ruth Pete, who actually is kind of relevant in this situation because she turned down Tory Lanez and was allegedly shot in her foot or ankle because of it. So depending on the outcome of the case, right, possible repercussions for saying that she was uninterested in continuing to spend time with someone. So, and that's a good data point, because like in the immediate aftermath, and I think y'all was talking about this, in the immediate aftermath, she somewhat defended him. Obviously it wasn't really just him, it was everybody else around her, right? But like that's just a thing that I think the average guy wouldn't do. Yeah, I think so. She talked about that in an interview, I want to say recently, and she was, I think she implied, I didn't read the full thing, so I don't want to give too much, right, because I could have misread, but I think she kind of implied that she was worried about negative repercussions for everybody, by expressing that there was a shooting with the cops, herself included. But yeah, to your point, yeah, she still was concerned about her safety and his, right, in a situation where she should have been concerned about making sure just she was safe. So yeah, we do an episodic Megan the Stallion shout out. So it felt like a good time to go ahead and toss that.
Good segue.
Yeah, that was a perfect time to bring it in.
Hey man, I try.
Wow.
So I think we talked about being the big brother, the big uncle, the father, the leader, and the man in your home and in your community and in your family to say, hey, this is not what you need to be doing. We talked about calling it out when we see it. What did we miss, fellas?
Well,
Consent.
so
We talked about that.
we talked about consent.
Yeah.
We obviously talked about consent. My bad, y'all.
Yep. We talked about predatory behavior. One of the things that Lawrence and I always say, like at the end of serious episodes like this, is like these problems have persisted for longer than any of us can remember. And as good as conversation is, like four intelligent people discussing it for an hour to an hour and a half, it's not going to solve it. But hopefully the four of us can inspire more people to start talking about it and build a foundation where they continue to have these discussions in their own homes. Hopefully us talking about this in the open lets them know, look, this is okay to discuss. It's okay to share your feelings about it and figure out where to go forward. So that way, hopefully someday the problem can actually be solved.
Most definitely. Hey, book recommendation in this topic area, especially y'all two have daughters. There's a book. It's called "Mommy, You Should Read This," and it's a book by someone who spent a lot of time in the child protective services arena. Did a lot of work with sexual assault survivors, especially children, and interviews and stuff, and just put together a quick, essentially a parent's guide to like, okay, what does this even look like? Because a lot of us have in our heads, the person with the boogeyman stapled across their forehead, and they got the evil mustache, and they go around attacking people and kind of stuff. And he really paints the picture of what it looks like and what the real stats are, and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, I read. I got a 4-year-old little girl. I read it, and it definitely. I felt like I felt a little more comfortable with what the actual dangers are. That kind of thing. I'll put a shout out there for that.
Yeah, it was called "Mommy, You Should Read This."
Yep.
Yeah. So I will definitely have that in the show notes. And I would love to have your guys' contact information in the show notes for the Whus Hattnin listeners.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go ahead and shout that out too.
Yeah.
Take us off, Bradley.
So for myself, you can find me at Archbishop Swag. Don't ask me about that name. I've been using it for like 12 years. But you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on TikTok. Fred, you can follow him at Mr.humble_beginnings. I know his social media handle better than he does. You can find him on Instagram there. And you can follow the show at Whus Hattnin. That's WHUSHATTNIN. You can follow that on all platforms: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And our show is available on all major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and a whole bunch more.
All right. So for the show, it's called Ingenious Perspectives. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a Facebook group. We're also on YouTube. We live stream on Twitch. So if you go to Twitch and look up JSTonio, so JSTonio, you'll find the Ingenious Perspectives page. There, we've got a couple streams up there already. They're also on YouTube. Same thing with our podcast. You can find them on all the major platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, right? Same things. Personally, my Instagram is Vitruvian Plato. And then Lawrence.
Yeah, Larry the Engineer, all underscores between.
So yeah, that's us. I want to say, I gotta give a shout out. So we when you listen to this, when we get done with the editing, you'll hear intro music. That's by Mr. Fins, Finz. Put our intro music together. And our outro music's by N.O. Dominique Beats off of YouTube.
Awesome. Our music from Whus Hattnin comes from Epidemic Sound. I can't think of the artist's name right now, but shout out to the artist. I think his name is nope.
I just cheated because Mr. Fins is my uncle, so he did the. So of course, I know who the artist is because my uncle made it.
Well, I think, gentlemen, we had a pretty impactful conversation. I personally enjoyed it.
I did as well.
I learned something myself for sure out of it, and I think it's on, like we talked about, it's on all of us to be the leaders in our homes and in our communities to show what right looks like and be that positive influence of change.
Absolutely. The close we always use is keep expanding your paradigms. So yeah.
I love it. That was dope. Y'all be smooth. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Peace.